Hey, you. Bravo's now in Canada.
I just got chills.
If you know Bravo,
I love that.
You love that?
you know Vanderpump Rules,
Why does it have to get so complicated?
Summer House,
Don't activate me because you've not seen me activated.
Below Deck,
I'm not your friend, I'm your captain.
Top Chef,
Hi, Chef.
and Housewives. Definitely Housewives.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking forward to this.
Bravo, now available.
It's insane.
Subscribe now with your TV service provider.
Fall in Canada has never been hotter.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
The anniversary of September 11th was nearing. The previous month, a father and son duo had been arrested for allegedly planning a terror attack in Toronto. And Jewish organizations in Canada had been saying all year that the level of anti-Semitism they were experiencing had them on high alert. And then into all that, this.
There are serious questions tonight about a suspect and his now foiled terror plot, allegedly coordinated on Canadian soil but set to be carried out south of the border. The Pakistani citizen living in Canada faces terror-related charges here and in the U.S.
In the days since this arrest was made, authorities have been tight-lipped. There is much we don't know about the man who was charged and about the attack he allegedly planned. But reporters have been digging, and what they find paints a picture, one that is more and more common to see. So what do Canadians need to know now about this foiled plot and the man accused of planning it? And what do we need to do now to make sure we prevent the next one? Because it sure seems like there will be a next one soon. I'm Jordan Heath Rawlings. This is The Big Story. Peter Edwards is a crime, courts, and justice reporter with the Toronto Star. He is covering this case. He has covered previously foiled terror plots in Canada. Hey, Peter.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about an incident that happened about, a week and a half ago now? Can you start by just explaining what actually happened and who the fellow we're talking about today is?
It's quite chilling, really. The guy, Mohammed Khan, was somehow picked up by Canadian and American authorities on the internet. He switched cars 3 times between Toronto and the American border. He allegedly was plotting a huge terror attack. He allegedly was trying to pick up guns and knives. He allegedly was trying for something that was the biggest terror attack since 9/11. And he was in Toronto as a student. It looks like he didn't stay too long as a student. He might have been working in healthcare after that and then headed off to do this allegedly.
What do we know about exactly what he was planning? Did he even have like a concrete plan to carry out or just plans to kill people?
See, that's what we're waiting for. And I was hoping we were going to learn this last week. The Canadian authorities are saying they haven't heard everything from the States, so they're waiting for more paperwork. What I have is a 17-page indictment of him, what he's alleged to have done, but I'm sure there's a lot more. We don't know yet a lot about the undercover officers. There was quite a big undercover campaign. It looks like both in the States and Canada. It looks like both sides did a really good job. And it's interesting because you can't entrap somebody. Like somebody has to be enthusiastic. I can't contact you and say, let's go do a terror attack. And you say, yeah, sure. And then you're convicted.
Right.
It has to come the other direction. So there seems to have been a fair bit of enthusiasm coming from their target.
What do we know about what that undercover operation might have looked like?
They don't say it, but it had to come off the internet. It had to come off encrypted internet. Like that's what these guys were communicating in. Their money was cryptocurrency. So this is a very dark webby type of thing. And my feeling is that there are all sorts of undercover police strolling around on the internet now.
You say these guys. It's just the one man arrested and indicted. What do we know about if he was acting alone? What kind of support or encouragement, if any, he might have had?
See, we haven't been told that yet. He was trying to get a lot of guns. I mean, if it's just one guy, you just need one gun, maybe 2. And he was trying to get a lot. He was trying to get a lot of knives, too. He wanted, allegedly, according to what I've seen, they wanted to slit throats. They wanted something shocking. And what we've seen is that it was aimed at the anniversary of the October 7th attack. And idea there would be that there'd be a lot of Jewish people gathered together, like they'd be an easy target. So that's what the allegations are. It's kind of frustrating because we're waiting to see exactly what they've got and who did the undercover work. That hasn't really popped up yet.
How close did he come to succeeding? You mentioned, he switched cars a few times and was near the border. Like, was this a near miss kind of thing? Or is this we saw this guy the whole way?
I mean, even if you see him, he can still get away with it. What you just asked, was he communicated with someone else and you arrest one and the other one does it?
Right.
Yeah, that's what we don't know. But he had been going on for a while. He seemed quite serious about it. And the ISIS stuff now is called terrorism on a budget. You don't really need that much. Like, you're on the internet and then you scrounge up the money for a couple of guns. This isn't really expensive. You're not going to war. You're just attacking and hurting. And if you're willing to die for it, it's not all that much money. And my gut feeling is he came pretty close. If it's him. I mean, this is all alleged stuff.
I mentioned you've covered previous attacks, specifically a group that I think we called Toronto 18. Maybe explain a little bit of how that plot compares and contrasts to what we're seeing here and how this kind of stuff is evolving year over year.
That's a good question because the originator, one of the big guys in Toronto 18 who went to prison, convicted, so I can say this with certainty, Zakaria Amara. And also I've messaged with him back and forth. So in the last couple of weeks, he feels really badly about it. He was the same age. He had a lot of anger. He wanted a world with certainty where you have good guys and bad guys. And he wanted to be on the crusading sort of victim side. But when you drill a little deeper with him, he was sexually molested when he was quite young, and he was working out a lot of anger from that. And so he found a political route, but his problems originated away from politics. And this is just an easy way to feel righteous when you're attacking. I think he's in a bit of trouble with ISIS because he questioned the motives of a lot of these guys. He said that a lot of them are not really that certain, and that's why they have to be so loud. That's why they have to attack, because they want to look like a true believer, but they're really not. That's an interesting thing. It's great when you can dump all your problems on someone else. Like, you can say it's all because of this group or that group. And for a lot of disaffected young men, his feeling is that's what's happening now.
What's it like talking to somebody who's not only been accused, but now convicted of trying to do a large-scale attack like that? And, what do you learn from those conversations that sticks with you when you cover the next one, sadly?
It's chilling because where he was going to set off one of the bombs is a route that I walk all the time in Toronto. Depending on what time he blew it up, I would have been walking right by it. Obviously that's troubling. But then when you talk to him, he seems like a kind of can people really change? I mean, that's the one question that keeps popping up in my work. And right now I'm doing a book on a guy who was a major organized criminal who seems to have changed. Can someone really, really change? And can they stay changed? And that's, I think, for both of our jobs, that's kind of at the heart of it. And when are they crocodile tears? When are they for real?
Mm-hmm.
What I got from talking to Amar is there's a lot of growing up between 20 and your mid-30s. And a lot of these guys are very young. A lot of these guys are late teens, early 20s, and looking for quick, dramatic solutions. And they don't realize dead is really dead, and that you're causing a lot of hurt to a lot of people. And now this guy Amara is really troubled at all the pain he's caused. Like, he's hurt a lot of people. And even just by plotting what he did, he also had a lot of people sent to prison because they followed him. And now he has to wrestle with all of that. And so it is pretty instructive that when we see people doing this stuff, we see 17 to 22-year-olds generally doing it. We don't see guys 55, 60. I mean, they might be directing a bit, but the ones front lines are the young guys.
When we're talking about this recent alleged attack that was foiled, do we have any sense of how Khan might have become radicalized?
No, and that's what's frustrating. It seems a lot like just someone who's looking for certainty, someone who's looking to join a group, someone who doesn't want a boring, anonymous life. I mean, Amara was working in a gas station and not a particularly big deal there. And so all of a sudden he's a international terrorist. Like, it's a lot more drama in this life.
This comes on the heels, I guess, of an arrest in August in Richmond Hill of a father and son who were allegedly, again, talking about terrorist acts and ISIS. Is this a trend? Are you hearing or seeing more of this, I guess, over the past, year? Because obviously October 7th was a catalyst, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And I generally cover organized crime, but I've just been pulled more into this, and one leads to another. And the other one, the father had showed up on videos allegedly dismembering somebody. There's a lot of how do these guys get in and why don't we pick up on it? If someone gets in on the student visa and they drop out, why are they allowed to stay? If someone's on an ISIS video dismembering somebody, is this someone we really want to give citizenship to? It's become a political issue, not just a policing issue. So for me, I can't ignore this stuff. I'm not even seeking it out. It's just coming to me.
You mentioned Con was here on a student visa. Has this become political now? Like, what do we know about why he was accepted in the first place? To your point, if he wasn't in school, why he was here? I think even the immigration minister has had to answer questions about this now, right?
Yeah, and we haven't really had real answers. How many resources do you have to put into tracking people? Do you have to monitor everybody's exam scores and when they show up at class and when they're suspended? It seems almost absurd. On the other hand, if Con came over, basically walked through the school and then walked out again,
right?
Does that count? Also, what about private colleges? There are all sorts of small little private colleges that take people. Does that count? Where do you draw the line? And for us, trying to hunt down what school he was at when becomes kind of dizzying too. What if he transferred?
Right.
Some institutions will say he wasn't there, and that gives you some certainty. He wasn't at University of Toronto, but a lot of them will say that's privacy. We don't go into that. But it has to be addressed. The way we're handling things isn't matching up with the task that has to be handled.
When we talk about the climate, Con allegedly wanted to go and murder Jewish people in Toronto and elsewhere around Canada. We've seen synagogues and Jewish schools being shot at and vandalized. Have the authorities said that this is a trend we need to be worried about, especially ahead of the next few weeks when Jewish people will be celebrating the high holidays? Like, what are you hearing from anybody in sort of intelligence about the heightened danger here?
It's interesting because the really good intelligence ones don't want you to know what they're doing because then they'll have to come up with something else. So, how they latched on to Con, and they really did. I can guess that they were in a chat room and that they sort of followed him and fed his ego. I know Jewish groups. Someone told me that now when there's an event, you have to sign up and pay some sort of a fee that before they tell you where it is. Like they don't want everybody to know it's going to be at this place or that place. And the kind of the more you make people destabilized, the more they want to get together for support, and then the better target they are.
Last question for you. You mentioned you're talking to people. We're also waiting for more from the authorities. What are you really looking to find out now about Con that you don't know? What's important that we have no idea about yet?
That's a really good question. How long was he here when he wasn't a student? And was that monitored? How was that not picked up? Was he working illegally? And how was that not picked up? And what counts as an institution? If you and I decide we're going to start up a college tomorrow, is that a college? Like when you get into private school, private colleges, where do you draw the line? It doesn't look like he was at one of what we identified as the 6 major post-secondary institutions in the Toronto area. Doesn't look like he was at one of those. If he was, he barely touched down. And so what counts seems to be a little too much honor system. Well, actually, a lot too much honor system.
Peter, thank you so much for walking us through this and sharing what you've got and what you're still working on.
Oh, thank you. And I hope the next interview is a happy one.
Peter Edwards, crime, courts, and justice reporter at the Toronto Star. That was The Big Story. For more from us, head to thebigstorypodcast.ca. Shoot us a note anytime at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca or shoot us a voice note by calling 416-935-5935. You can find The Big Story in every podcast player. That includes Seeker, Seekr, and It also includes your smart speaker, which you can ask to play the Big Story podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Jordan Heath Rawlings. We'll talk tomorrow.